says every single traffic impact study shall have a traffic signal warrant analysis. And I can read that to you if you want. Minimum requirements for all traffic studies.
And let me just add, these reports are done by certified engineers that work outside the county. These are
Licensed
traffic engineers that the applicant hires to do a report.
Yes. So this is the county's traffic guidelines. This is traffic impact report contents checklist right here. Signal warrant analysis. Peak hour and average daily traffic per the state of California Department of Transportation standard. And that's all done by manual and uniform traffic control devices. So yes, you're supposed to have a licensed traffic engineer prepare these things in accordance with their standards. We, the town council, asked, even the town council before us, okay, the 2014 town council, asked for looking at traffic impacts, including Antelope Woods and traffic signalization. So, for some reason, the county did not require any of the traffic studies, January, March, or August, to look at the traffic signal requirements, even though their own standards are required. So clearly, and now we know why, because when you actually, this is what we had prepared, town council had prepared, and submitted in the record. That's why for 4 hour, 1 hour, and daily, they exceed all the limits, and they all at 2 different traffic intersections.
I remember double checking that. And the warrant analysis is not something that's difficult to do. You basically put the values into the boxes, run them through the calculation, and it gives you an answer.
That's right.
It's not something that you need to go out and collect additional data on. It's not something that you need to do.
You use this data for it. You use all the published data.
Yeah, so it's basically just filling the boxes and getting the final answer on it.
Although we made the point to the judge that it is not under California law, traffic engineers is not a protected license class. So any competent person can prepare a traffic study. It's not like a civil engineer where you have to have a PE and have to have a stamp. Otherwise, it's not a legitimate, electrical diagram or whatever. That's not the case for traffic studies. They don't have to be stamped, and they don't have to be prepared by a licensed traffic engineer. It doesn't matter, that's irrelevant, but it's not a protected class anyway.
Well, I assume they have the opportunity to check the accuracy of the warrant analysis that we submitted.
Yes, in fact, the judge pointed out that the county never found any errors in it. They just, and she said it straight up, they just ignored it. So, and we also pointed out that every single impact analysis that has been done by the county with the traffic study had a warrant analysis, even ones that were much less traffic than this, a few hundred trucks instead of 1,000.
You had a question.
In your studies, or in those studies, did they look at other uses of the road besides vehicles? Because we're a rural area, so we do not have paseos, we do not have bike lanes, and we have a lot of people coming up. And when I ride in the morning or in the afternoon, the freeway has chased off a lot of people onto our road. So if we have additional fast food restaurants, it's going to be put more people on Sierra Highway on Soledad. Our roads are so outdated, they're not made to handle anything but a vehicle. The side of the road where they want you to ride, I have to ride on the inside because there is no outside. The road curve shrinks in on a curve, and these people fly. So in this study, do they take anything into consideration? People walking their dogs, people riding their horse, people just walking, people on bikes?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because that's another, I didn't even bring that up. Another issue that we raised, and in the record was a letter by a former law enforcement officer who said, this is going to increase the existing danger in that area for pedestrians and equestrians and cyclists. And if you look at the initial study that the county did, they never even looked at hazards, traffic hazards, to non-vehicular users. Never looked at it, okay? And we pointed that out. And the judge, that was another element that the judge awarded the plaintiffs on, because they had been given clear evidence, even from former law enforcement officers, that's accorded great weight by the court, because they're experts, that this traffic impact, the safety hazard is an issue that needs to be looked at. And the judge called them out straight on. You ignored that completely. You didn't even look at it as a potential impact, let alone assess whether it could be an actual significant impact. So there were a lot of things that were problematic with the environmental analysis that was done for this project. That was another one. So we asked them to look at that, and the judge agreed that they did not only not do an adequate job on that, they did nothing on that.
No job on it. All right, so we have a second.
Who was the second?
Yeah.
Oh, Tom, thank you, Tom.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Jackie.
Can,
Thank you for some of that.
Can you guys start looking at your calendar and tell me how many you might be able to, and I hate to say this, but this is gonna be one that would be best be done in Los Angeles,
Right.
like eye to eye, you know?
So 26th or 24th, you said?
24th,
24th at 9:30.
yeah, that's the day before I go to Texas on the 25th, so.
So you'll be around?
Be here.
I'll drive you to the airport if you can make it.
I quietly said, I'll be here.
I want you to be there though. That's
I'll be there.
okay.
Question.
Jackie, would it help to have a lot of people go to that meeting? Like get
I
a
think
group?
it would be
Like get the
awesome.
parent groups, especially the high desert parents who are affected by this? I mean,
Yeah,
we
nobody
could get a
knows this
group.
stuff. Nobody knows this stuff. I think it would be unbelievably.
I think it needs to be brought up at a
And they
booster
can go-
meeting.
They can go over to Lancaster
Yeah,
and speak, then they
To
don't have to
testify.
drive that way.
Mhm.
Anything you could do to help me on that, I would be very grateful. I plan on, now that I know when the hearing's set,
yeah.
making this comment to people at the Vasquez PTSO, because I go there, I don't go to the middle school anymore, but if you know parents there, and I'm happy to share this with you, with them, or anything, so.
Just an interesting note about this. It took us 2 years to secure this change to our CSD, maybe even longer than 2 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This has gone through in less than 3 months. It's going to be at the Board of Supervisors from the planning, the regional planning to the planning commission to the Board of Supervisors in 3 months.
Oh, I know. And another thing that I didn't mention, and I will, is not part of what we're going to talk about, but the modification says that the feed store / fast food drive-through business is considered approved and therefore is grandfathered in.
Where does it say that in there?
Let me find the motion. It says right here, in the staff report and the motion. Just give me a second.
Because it talked about decisions made by the decision makers. There was a date there that were made before that would be.
Shoot, where is it? Yeah, and that's what, in the staff report, they're saying the decision makers approved the drive-through, fast food drive-through / feed store.
But unless they meet the requirements by the court.
Well, that's, okay, that's what I was gonna get into.
So I don't see how this motion actually helps them unless they plan on skirting their legal requirements.
Well, that's the
When
thing.
they're just gonna get nailed again by another community group.
I agree, and I'm trying to find the motion itself.
What's that?
Oh, here it is. Okay, it says, here's the motion. Oh, no, this is what they told them to do. Okay, I'm sorry, let me pull the motion. In order, comments. For the purposes of this subsection, the term new drive-through facility or service does not include those facilities or services which, prior to the effective date of this subsection, July 6, 2018, were 1, lawfully established in compliance with all applicable ordinance and laws, or approved by the final decision maker as set forth in section blah, blah, blah. Section 22, 222, 210. So the problem is that if you look at the judgment and the writ, it says straight up that all approvals for both the CUP and the subdivision are vacated in their entirety. And if you look at the, what the board itself approved, right here, condition in condition number 7, if any material provision of this grant is held or declared to be invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, the permit shall be void and the privileges granted hereunder shall lapse. So the permit, what was approved, actually says it's voided. The judge ordered the entire approval vacated. So in reality, this addressing something that has been approved by the final decision maker, the approval has been voided, so there is nothing
Right.
other than the existing.
And it doesn't meet the legal requirements.
Exactly. That was pointed out to the planning commission in a letter that was submitted by the petitioner in this lawsuit. And what the planning commission said was that that letter talks about a lot of legal things, and the planning, no, I'll read it to you.
No, I believe you.
And the planning commission is not a legal body.
They're not bound by law.
It's not a legal body, they just, no,
No, but that, yeah, I'm just
Seriously?
paraphrasing.
yeah, is not a legal body, and so therefore, and they weren't even sure if the author was a lawyer,
Does that
so,
matter?
no, it doesn't matter.
Of course not, yeah.
No,
What I'm-
and so it's not something that they could really address.
Right.
It's like, but you're defining approval in it, and here's the legal basis why what you're defining is completely void and doesn't exist. And they're like, well, we're not lawyers, so that's not something we're gonna take up.
So, just to quickly summarize, I think what we're talking about here is, even though this motion could go through, it doesn't grant them the ability to move forward, because they haven't even met the requirements of the motion. But it's important to set the record straight on this, so it doesn't get fast-tracked through and all these things overlooked, and we don't have to fight this battle again. Is that a fair summary? And I'm not doing this for me, I'm kind of doing this.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I think it's a little bit more than that, because the person who made those statements about it just being a fix-it ticket and it's a little hiccup, he's actually an attorney for the property owners. And he has told the attorney for the petitioner that once this goes through, they can start going.
Right.
So whatever the board thinks, it has been conveyed lawyer to lawyer that their understanding is that they can go forward with development once this goes through.
So it's more imminent than even just,
I don't know what that means, I wasn't.
No, yeah.
So, yeah,
or at least that's the
Yeah,
image being
yeah.
presented is that this is, so we need to get, we're gonna write the letter, we're gonna get.
No, I appreciate that, but yes.
Yeah.
there is, at least some people understand that this is the pathway forward.
Which it sure seems like it when we're talking about what you just said, where it went from 2 years to 3 months and suddenly
Yes.
it's magically.
And when it's represented to the planning commission, all we have to do is
Doesn't do it.
revise the traffic study and then just send it on for approvals. And then once we give it to the court, we're good to go. I mean, did you not read the writ? Anyway.
All right. All
we're
right.
done with that. Sorry.
No, it's important.
You had a question back there.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What you gonna ask?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I do. You guys were saying that you're gonna do a face-to-face meeting with somebody who won't respond to you guys. Sorry, I'm coming in like 2 years late apparently. Wouldn't it be easier just to get that email and with the students, parents of High Desert, and just
We'll
give
do
them
both.
email
Yeah,
blast?
we do both.
Yeah.
That's where social media is kind of nice,
Yeah.
because if you get her email out, it doesn't take a lot to get it out there, especially in this town, and just blast her
Right.
with some emails.
No, you're right, and we'll do
Yeah,
both.
yeah.
I don't do social media, so that'll be have to handle it this side of the table.
You just have to get the email out to about 2 or 3 people, and that thing will be gone.
I appreciate that.
But it's
We'll do
important
that.
that the information that they
Yeah.
latch onto
It's
is
the correct.
is accurate and
Factual.
remains accurate.
Yeah, and I think maybe something along the lines of, my understanding is that the actual traffic study wasn't presented in front of the board. I'm curious why that was and why that wasn't considered. I mean, something along those lines, so
Well, I
we'll
wasn't
get,
even going that route, I was going more the route that she won't respond back to you.
yeah,
So,
well,
yeah,
yeah.
just to get a meeting without you having to go to Los Angeles at 9:30 in the morning on the 24th.
Oh, well,
That she'll
we
respond.
have to go anyway.
Well, and to be fair, we haven't asked her to meet with us, so I don't, she hasn't said
Well,
she
not on
won't
this
meet with us.
issue.
Not on
Not
But
on
I'm
this
guessing,
issue.
I'm guessing that she might not, but
Yeah.
maybe your staff will.
But it's a great suggestion.
So along with this, maybe a press release would be
Yeah,
for social media types to spread out.
Okay,
thank you.
That would be my,
Just gets their attention.
yeah, I can put her.
All right. Let's move on to the Hefner Road, Delasong CB.
So we got the information we asked for from the county, or at least some of it. We've heard back from, we just don't have information from the health department and the fire department. And it does, from what were submitted, it does look like it's just a house. And the reason we wanted to circle back with the county and get what had been submitted to the county is we've often been told by the developer, we're doing something, and then what they've told the county is we're doing something else. So we approve this something, and then something else gets approved. So that's great. The only thing I can think of, and it only came up because of the Thousand Trails Trail dedication, was the only thing I can think of is that we did discuss with Mr. Delasong the issue of feeder trails. We've asked the county in our CSD revisions to obtain easements for feeder trails in areas that are not on mapped backbone trails. The trails don't have to be developed, we just want to make sure that there's an access path for equestrian and hikers. It's a multi-use trail that prevent them from being chained off. The house is adjacent to at least 2 film ranch parcels that are also undergoing CUP review, and that we'll probably ask for trails for once we finally get a presentation on them. Because, and the reason this is kind of important is, if you actually look at the county's backbone trail map as of 2012, which changed since 2017, there's a trail that sort of ends at Acton's boundary along Soledad, and then there's a trail that sort of goes into the forest east of Thousand Trails. So there's like a huge gap of like no connection between a trail that just ends right at our boundary. And so I think it's, since we're trying to secure trail access, if not actual trails, construction, that might be something we maybe want to talk to Mr. Delasong about, if he'd be interested or adverse, you know, not be opposed.
Be amenable to.
Amenable, that's the word I'm looking for, I'm sorry, to it. So here's the map.
Yeah, so I'd like to see.
Yeah, so here's the, it's the best I can do.
No, no, you're good.
Here's the Acton map, and this is right on basically the trail, where am I?
But no, be.
Okay, so here's the trail on Acton's boundary here, and here's the trail that Thousand Trails is going to be working on. And so there's like a no, and these two don't connect actually in the forest on the, there's another 2007 map that shows more detail on the forest boundary, and there's no trail that connects them. So I don't want to pull a fast one on Mr. Delasong, but I didn't realize this until.
So, yeah, we'll look at, well, I think it's definitely worth reaching out. I think that we probably need to give him some specifics about kind of where, so we can make the judgment call, so, you know.
now, if he was going to do a minor subdivision, it would be required.
Right.
But
And-
we're asking is, would you be interested in adding this connectivity?
Well, not exactly, because if you look at our AV plan, it says that trails are supposed to be gotten during development and permit review. So it isn't just subdivisions, it's also permits. So the path is there. That's why they're doing it for Thousand Trails. That's a CUP, just like Mr. Delasong's. And that's how I just, that's like, does that make sense?
I don't think it hurts to ask. I
No, I
don't
don't.
know that I would like have the.
Parks and Recs is
for-
gonna say no.
Yes.
They don't want to deal with it. That's
Yes.
why we've had that. but we need to at least
I
be
think that-
consistent with what we asked for in the CSD.
Yeah, and yeah, like I said, I don't want to go with pitchfork and torch, but I think that asking and presenting or thinking that, hey, we're gonna also ask the big picture of like, hey, these other CPs, you know, it'd be nice to have that connectivity and that, you know, reinforces what we're trying to preserve.
Or
Right.
presenting why we're asking, because he is getting a permit.
Yeah, and it's part of the AV
Right.
plan.
Right.
And
If we
it
don't
says
ask, if we
development
don't
is-
ask him, we can't ask somebody else.
Absolutely.
Well,
And there's a reason,
Yeah.
we're not just asking, he's not in some landlocked parcel that nothing touches, and we're going, hey, you can do this trail. It's like, no, there's actually some sense to connecting that, and if we're gonna ask them, it'd be really silly then to go through the CP process with the other two and get it, and then have this like, hey, I can see the trail starts over there.
And we have places here where there've been trails and they've been chained off. You know, I can think of several places like that, so, and I won't name places, but. that would be one of them.
Yeah, for the property.
So Jackie, when you were talking about waiting for the,
Health department.
that from the health department, the fire department, is that so we can make our comments?
Well, I am kind of curious about what the fire department's gonna do. Part of my concern, again, a lot of this is triggered by what we saw from Thousand Trails. There's almost no requirements from any of those departments, which is weird. And I want to see what they're doing for a house
Right.
As
and
opposed
not
to-
doing for an entire,
Right.
you know. So, but since those comments aren't even done yet, we're not holding Mr. Dallison up
Okay.
at all, because they're not, they haven't.
They're not waiting on us.
According
We
to
come
this-
after.
Yeah, according to Mr. Kersey, the comments haven't haven't come in yet, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give Troy just a little bit of a background.
I don't know anything about it.
The CUP is because the house was built too close to the property line. So I guess their options were a CUP, which allows them to keep it where it was, or a lot line adjustment, which would require
How long has the house been constructed done?
a long time.
A long time.
1990, I think? Oh, I thought that's what the thing said on the application. And it's over there right next to, it's a budding Pulsarosa. And the Pulsarosa people are happy about it because they'd like to see the house used, so.
As
So it's on
opposed to
Hefner
being
Road.
vacated, you know.
It's vacant right now.
Yeah.
No, I think they're in it now, are they?
There's a house there, I don't know if anyone, they don't have an occupancy permit yet, obviously, so.
It's been used as a
Crash.
vacant, kind of crash house.
So they're happy to see somebody live in it.
Yeah, well, cleaning, getting things taken care of.
And there's no other structures on the other side of the line, it's just empty Pulsarosa, so it seems kind of a no-brainer for making that happen.
So I can reach out to Mr. Dallison to at least have the discussion, see if he'll come to the meeting on, what day would you like me to invite him?
I'd say the next one.
We have the county coming on the 16th for sure.
Yeah, is there anything else, I'm trying to think if there's anything else we've kind of floating that might show up the 16th or the 16th. I mean, obviously, no crystal
Maybe-
ball, see
maybe
what
Edison.
falls out of the sky.
Maybe Edison, because I didn't get as much done on Edison as I wanted to, so.
Okay, then,
Well, at the very least, I think.
let's do 16th.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the heads up needs to get out to them
Yeah.
as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. And that was it, otherwise we were pretty much happy with this project.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Nobody's opposed, nobody said they're opposed, nobody's written to town council, so.
All right. Thank you, Nikki. All right. Speaking of Thousand Trails CD.
Did any of you guys get a chance to look at, I know, Tom, you looked at one of the documents.
The document from the health department, which just says they approve it. There's no notes, there's no staff report I can find or anything to go with it. It doesn't say even what they looked at or what they considered, and this is not just a house, this is a gigantic campground.
That's, well, in the septic report, when I looked at it, it just talked about the pool. So we didn't talk about
It's
any
the,
of the other septic on the
it's
property.
the backwash.
Backwash, it wasn't
Not even
anything
the
else.
pool.
Yeah.
Right. the
So,
backwash
so
filter.
that's, I was kind of surprised, I kept thinking, well, are we missing, like, did they not send the whole report? It seemed very puzzling to me that that's probably like the least concern. Oh, you know, that was added later,
Yeah.
and all that, I mean, that's not the impact that we're worried about. I mean,
Right.
obviously we're worried about it, but it's not the primary concern, which is the 2,000 spots that are.
Yeah, well,
that
about
are.
800 spots,
Well,
yeah.
whatever, it just,
Yeah.
all those spots, all the people that are in those spots that are using the facilities and like, where's it going?
Right. It's interesting because most places have one WDR. Your house has a WDR for septic. And so I'm going to give the county staff the benefit of the doubt, and they just, oh, there's the WDR on file, it's good. But as you pointed out, the WDR is just for the backwash on the, it doesn't even address the septic. The county just approved another septic system on Thousand Trails 2 weeks ago for the laundry facilities.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So it doesn't look at that. So under the law though, okay, so when I mentioned last time that the Water Quality Control Board ordered them to submit a report of waste discharge, that is the beginning of the WDR process for all of their 12+ septic systems. But that was in 2014, Thousand Trails never did anything. They didn't respond, and nothing's been submitted. So had they responded to that, then when Health Department pulled it up, they'd see all these WDRs. So Public Health's entire analysis consists of one sentence, quote, "The Department of Public Health, Environmental Health Division has reviewed the latest information. Per Los Angeles RWQCB, the site has a current WDR." That's it.
A current.
And that's for the backwash. So this is my summary, in my analysis. It seems that public health is not aware that the WDR is just for the pool backwash system, like you pointed out. It does not address or even consider the 684 septic connections that the state licensing board says is on site to serve RV campsites. They also seem unaware that Thousand Trails has failed to comply with the Regional Water Quality Control Board order to prepare WDRs for their septics. They also seem unaware of state regulations that require septic systems to have WDRs. So they also seem unaware that most of the Thousand Trails septic connections, waste lines, and leach fields all lie within the MAC floodplain of the Santa Clara River. So I think we should reach out directly to the public health reviewer with maybe an instructive letter saying, you might have missed some things. I don't know, what do you? That's one thing.
Good idea.
Instead of just going to
We have
regional
to.
planning and filing comments, we have to go to the source, the
Yeah,
people who are.
we have to.
And then I looked again at the trails thing, and Parks and Recs is only requiring a trail dedication and not an actual trail development, construction. Now, there's a backbone trail going in this area and on the project. And Parks and Recs is supposed to get not only dedications, but trail development in areas where there's backbone. And they don't dispute that. That is at least one thing we don't have to argue with them. But the condition that they're saying is we just want an easement. They're not even making them do a trail, which they say it's going to connect to the trails on that conservancy property, which we don't know the status of. So I thought we should ask Parks and Recs what the status is of the conservancy had requested that the trail be constructed and not just dedication. So that again, that's a direct reach out to Parks and Recs. That's what I'm thinking. And now Public Works, same thing. They've just, they're only asking for road dedication and not road improvements. We should ask, here's what I think, we should ask if this is a new policy, and if so, whether minor land divisions in Acton, which create lots of 2.5 acres, will be allowed to proceed without road improvements, as permitted by the county code, section 2132.080. This has been a big stumbling block for residential development in Acton because Public Works makes you build the street to your house, right?
Absolutely.
So if Public Works is willing to approve Thousand Trails without any road improvements over a blue line stream, over an actual river, which I don't have a problem with.
No.
I'm not saying they should,
No,
but are they gonna be?
yeah, we're using the same standard for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah, why are they treated differently?
Why are they
than
exempt from?
anybody else?
And I have no problem, again, with not having any, we haven't heard from any residents that are demanding this,
No.
so why should we ask for it? But then we should make sure that everybody else is doing it.
Yeah, because it sets a precedent.
It's, well,
Well, no,
we're gonna make it for
No, I
residents, yeah.
If they don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a big hurt on people who just want to build a
Yes.
house.
Yes.
Now, a fire department has absolutely no conditions at all. No conditions.
a place that has.
They're not
fire.
even requesting all-weather access.
Yeah,
Seriously.
but I think it's interesting.
And even though they require single-family residences to provide proof of all-weather access, I know fire departments have chained people out of their homes, even if they have shown all-weather access, because it's still not good enough, right,
And
Pat?
I
We
had
know
to put
people
a
like that.
concrete driveway to mine.
Well,
So I think we should ask the fire department.
Yeah.
and they have fires there, like that's what seems so crazy.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, like, I mean, that's why I'm interested, like you, to see what they're gonna say about Mr. Dallas on my property. Because if there are some kind of restrictions there, that's a house, not,
1,000.
where there's open flame all over 800 spots.
Yeah.
It's just, and then the last thing that kind of, so that's another reach out directly to the fire department, because, you know, we've sort of given an initial comments to regional planning. We know, you know, whichever file they end up in, circular or otherwise. So here's something that I was thinking. It doesn't appear that any county department is restricting the use of campsites on the south side of the river to June through September. Now, that's a condition on the KOA campground, because parts of their campground you have to go through the river to get to. So there's restrictions on using some of the sites. Well, the same's true on Thousand Trails, but they're not, nobody, I don't see any of that condition being imposed, you know? So, does that, I don't know if that's that's, seems odd to me. That why would they treat KOA differently? I don't understand why not one county agency has one
Yeah.
single condition other than dedications.
I'm puzzled over a lot of it, considering the
How long did
SCA.
it have to come up
Well,
with requests?
Common request, the concern about the environment with SCA, but the apparent ignoring of any environmental mishaps that are happening down there, from them filling in the riverbed. I mean, or that was
KOA
but yeah, I'm just talking about campground in general.
Yeah.
That there seems to be a disconnect there. You know, the septic stuff, I mean, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, even against my better judgment, that that's the only WDR they just found the top one and they put through in there. What is that contributing to what we've already are concerned with, is that that's why we're seeing, you know, downstream, they're seeing, you know, fecal coliform. So all that just seems very odd to me, that on one hand, we're saying we're really concerned about this area, on the other hand, we're saying, I'm not looking at it.
Yeah, rubber stamp.
Okay.
This looks like a gigantic rubber stamp to me.
Yeah.
Well, considering what they put us through to get building permits just to build one residence, and you're telling me there's no requirements from the fire department? Really? I had to pave my road.
Yeah, I didn't see
I mean,
it. And you're not even a blue line street.
I know, I mean, yeah. I don't understand it, Jackie.
Not that I'm saying, I don't think they should have to do a whole heck of a lot. Like, I don't think you should have to do a whole heck of a lot.
But I,
But,
But I
if you
needed
get
to in order
if
to
you have
live
then
there.
They definitely should have.
and I mean, this is,
yeah, it seems
I
like
don't like the double standard,
triple,
that's where I
quintuple
have.
standards, you know?
Or no
Or no standards.
Chairman.
Yeah, sorry.
Just real quick, I mean, I don't know if this helps you guys or not, but like, Thousand Trails is more of a residential, like people live there kind of thing, where KOA is, especially recently, whatever upgrades they've been doing, it's very much recreational. It's very
KOA.
much, it's very temporary, they don't have any long-term, all the knuckleheads they had back there, there's no one there that's permanent at all anymore. So it is a seasonal use, let's have fun. They redid the outdoor area, KOA, now they have like a giant like pizza oven thing and outdoor stadium like for concerts and stuff. Like, so they're basically doing it as a destination. Thousand Trails is more of a I'm here kind of place. And same thing with Cali Lakes. And that's, I don't know if that differentiates all or helps you guys out with some of that stuff, but there is definitely a big difference between the parks.
Well, KOA has a national reputation for being a campsite or a campground that you can pull into, and you know you're going to get a quality place to camp.
Right.
And they seem to really be holding that standard here in Acton.
They didn't before, but they,
They
whatever.
do- Well, it wasn't KOA before.
Oh, it wasn't?
Well,
it's been KOA for
For a few
about
years.
10
it's
years.
been-
Yeah.
12
Right,
years.
but ever since KOA moved in, it started improving pretty
Correct.
quickly.
So yeah, they even have like a paintball area, a wall rock climbing area. Like, it is definitely like you feel like, oh, I can bring my family here for the weekend and kind of get away. Kind of. So it's night and day.
We have a pool.
And that is the exact use and intention for Thousand Trails. It is not supposed to be a residential park.
Right. In fact, it says straight up, you cannot look at it.
Right.
Well, originally it was a members only
Yes.
type thing, like,
Which is what the original CUP was.
it's kind of like a timeshare.
That's all, the only CUP.
Private membership, no residence.
Correct.
Right. And,
But that all changed a few years ago, I don't know
well, not legally.
Yeah,
Not
they
legally,
can't,
they
they're
just-
not,
they
don't
just
operate
did.
under-
Slid it in.
when. What's that?
They're not operating under, the CUP's expired, and this is why we're. having
Right.
this discussion.
Yeah, they just didn't.
But even the way Thousand Trails was, it was just a membership only.
Yep.
That's right.
Now you can get, you can.
You do it
Now I think anybody can just stop.
Yeah,
it.
you
It's
can
not
go
like-
on, what do you call it, Experian and book a campsite
Yeah.
or a cabin. Oh, yeah, I have the printout, yeah. So it's,
So since we've already voted and sent one letter, do we have to vote to send out these individual ones?
I don't know, I'll do whatever you guys think. I just think we should reach out to each of these guys.
Yeah, I think we're fine with the consensus. I think,
Without it, without.
yeah, this is, to me, a
It's
continuation
continuation of
of
the same
the
motion.
current action, which is
Okay.
trying to get some clarity as to why it's just being rubber stamped.
Why there's so much more hardcore on just a home development, right?
I don't know if it's something that they are just going, well, it's been operating, it's fine. Like, it's that they're not actually looking at, there's a disconnect between them understanding that it's not operating the same way as like what we just highlighted, right? So it was originally this way, now it's completely different.
Without a permit anyway.
Without a permit anyway.
It should be non-existent at
It
this
shouldn't,
point.
it shouldn't be functioning until they, deal with it. So, yeah, I don't know.
Right, or at the very least, it should be operating with the same conditions that were imposed on it.
Correct,
It has-
exactly.
Well, interestingly enough, if you look at the CUP that expired more than 10 years ago, if you look at it, it says that when this expires, you are subject to all current regulations. So I would say it isn't enough that they have to comply with the old stuff. They also need to comply with at least the new WDR requirements that came in the mid-90s, which weren't enforced from the first CUP. So they didn't get tagged for this until this new CUP. So but we have that letter from regional planning saying their old CUP is expired, so we're not going to enforce anything on the old CUP. The most we can do is ask them to comply. And it's like they didn't seem to understand it. They shouldn't even be operating.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
No, I
it's in the
believe you.
web.
I just-
I had that email at the last meeting. I don't have it.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
Complacency.
Well, I don't, it's like, then what's the point of anybody following any rules? Like, we should just do whatever.
Exactly. And well, last thing is, can we put the 1,000 trails clearances on the website so the public can see them and we can get public comment on it? Like, why the heck did I have to do X, Y, Z in there? I think that's totally fair.
Well, and then that's another problem too, is we haven't been given access to any of the.
No, we find, now we have,
Oh, that's
well, we
right.
did, yeah, we did get it.
Yeah, except for the,
Well, we haven't seen the actual CUP yet, right? We've only seen
No,
the
well,
reports
the
from four
reports.
departments.
Yeah.
well, that's what I mean, is we haven't seen the actual, that, and then
The
obviously.
staff report.
And obviously if they're basing it on the WDR for the backwash, like, we got some serious issues.
Yeah, so I think it's important to reach out to the actual reviewers from the department so that they can amend their, see if we can get them to amend their
I
things.
agree with that, Jackie.
Yeah.
So just one big letter, we need to contact
Yes.
each one
And
individually.
we'll CC Ramon on each of them, so it's part of that.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, and I wonder too, what, since they're like more of a public place, what the calls for service for like the sheriff department and the fire department is, because I know before it wasn't very much, but I did go there quite a lot when I was working patrol at Palmdale, and you know what I mean, that when they
Do you
had.
get a lot of calls there?
Yeah, I don't know, I haven't worked at Palmdale since 2012, but maybe Deputy Martinez could offer his insight. Do you guys still get a lot of calls at Thousand Trails?
Not as many as we used to.
Is that just because there's no cell phone service?
I don't know. I don't know if they're just, the security, the internal security is kind of
Might
regulated
be,
a little bit better now. Because there is like, with like.
I know on the holidays, when I worked at Palmdale Station, we used to get quite a few calls.
Yeah, I mean, we still do here and there, but there honestly has not been anything like crazy.
Are they calls from people at Thousand Trails with issues, or people?
Like domestic
around?
violence, like,
Okay.
you know, like normal calls for service.
All right, so there's, but not like people around, like neighbors around?
No, it's like, it's like
Yeah.
us responding to
Yeah,
household.
yeah, okay.
like Cali Lakes, we don't get too many calls down there, but when you talk to their security, it's like, they go, no, we handle our own business. Like, oh, okay.
I'll just turn around and
Yeah.
go back to the city.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's fine.
Everything's fine here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't need me, I'm out.
Just keep walking.
So you wouldn't get like calls from management at Thousand Trails saying, we've got an issue here with,
No, it's usually residents calling on,
There used to be more of that, that's why I was curious if it's.
yeah, it was.
there is a new management, I think, because there's been a,
So when you say the security on site, do they have, I mean, I don't even know. Do they have
they have little
security
guys on
there?
golf carts and stuff, they're like maintenance / security, they,
Okay.
you know.
Is there any requirement for them to keep the sheriffs up to date on what they do? That doesn't sound right, because then if something big was to happen, you have no background going into it that the local security would have.
I mean,
Well, let's put it
there's
this
a
way.
gate when you first enter, and it's usually manned. And so like anytime like we go there, they usually ask a space number that we're getting called to. And we have a decent relationship with them. So like, you know, they'll go, oh, that's so-and-so's house, or, you know, they'll give us a background before we get
Do
there.
they really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah, I
county,
mean, I'm
regional
sure
planning
it's-
is satisfied itself that there's nobody living there now.
Yeah.
At least that's what it looks like according to.
I mean, that's the whole problem we're having with the
Yeah, I'm not sure.
RVs is because, okay, they're not living there. They're there whatever X amount of weeks they're allowed to be there, and they're off property for a week, and then they come back. That's, I mean, okay, I guess that doesn't
Not-
qualify as living there, but that's where you live. That's-
No, you're right, yeah.
It is.
And
They
that's
should
on
just make
all
a
the
spot.
RV problems of all these people, everyone complaining on them on Antelope Woods and on Soledad. All of them are from.
I mean, it's like if you park your car on the
doing a
street,
week off.
you gotta move every X number of days.
Well, we did make that comment in our letter.
Right.
You gotta pull up.
And you know, those comments have been made for quite a few years
To
now.
me, that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, people have
I'm not
complained
doing
about
that.
them on
Well-
Antelope Woods and.
Well, regional planning issued a notice of violation to them, and then they closed the notice of violation because they were satisfied that people weren't living there.
Right.
And then when a resident gave them copies of Megan's Law showing 4 or 5, you know, people who were
That's, they
pedophiles.
gave for their
They,
address.
the planner said, well, they have to live somewhere. That is what the planner said to her. Now there are 2, at least there's not 4 or 5. Anyway,
So, assuming
There are no permanent residences, although people are listing it as a permanent residence.
Or as
On
an
Megan's
address.
Law.
Of Megan's Law.
And the school bus stops.
And the school bus stops there regularly.
Yes.
It's a regular stop for the school bus.
Makes sense.
And the balance goes on.
But you can't build a house here without paying $50,000 in fees and,
And you're older, you have to well yield.
oh yeah, with 3 gallons a minute.
I wouldn't even want to try to build a house here again.
No.
All right, so we're good on the Elm Trails with what we're going to proceed with, right?
Okay.
All right. Interim housing, speaking of,
Okay, we did get confirmation from regional planning, they're coming, they can attend the September 16 meeting. Unfortunately, however, they are planning on releasing a draft of the ordinance by the end of August.
well, at least we know what we're talking about.
Yes.
At least somebody's putting something out that we can look at.
We don't have any more information other than what I had already reported on after the ARTC meeting. So, and there's nothing posted on their website other than the open houses meeting that they had in April. So I think it's a good idea to send comments regarding safe parking. Some of the things we talked about, maybe we'll get public comment here, that if they're going to do the safe parking, they need to have conditions on it, and like sanitary, shower, and a
My
guard.
biggest concern with that is going to be that what will get out into the ether will be that churches are safe parking lots, not selected churches. And you're just gonna have people setting up shop at
Wherever.
Yeah.
I agree.
Is that is gonna be the loss in translation, and then you're gonna be
Yep.
dealing with the
Yep.
aftermath, which is like,
Well, that leads me to the second part. It's like, well, if you have to enforce the conditions you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if the person doesn't have a permit,
Yeah.
then you have to enforce it. There is no permit.
Yeah.
And if the person does have a permit, you have to enforce the conditions on it. And if you're not willing to do that, you need, and you have to have a revocation clause. Otherwise, It's
Yeah.
just,
It's opening Pandora's
it's
box.
crazy, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be terrible.
So, anyway, so I think we should send comments regarding the safe parking and the use of the campgrounds for bridge housing. And I'm willing to write the letter, I just want to know if the town council thinks we should do this, what we should say about it.
I think that we've been talking about it now for a couple of meetings, and I think that. you know,
Nobody, no comment, no
No,
public
no,
comments
no
about
public
it.
comment, but I think there's a lot of public comment maybe directed at Mr. Goldberg that could be looked at in the same light as what the
Okay,
community,
yeah, that's true.
which is basically there's no services in Acton
No service.
to support. I think that's the main crux of it. We can't plant a bunch of people out here and then just say, hey,
Abandon them.
good luck.
Well, and you can't put them at
The place that doesn't have a CUP and
yeah,
it's
or in
operating
the parking
illegal.
lot and not have restrooms and
And
not
facilities,
have
well, like I said,
facilities for them.
infrastructure and facilities and services.
Well, like Jeremiah said, they're just gonna end up, they'll see the Presbyterian church,
And just go,
and, okay, there's parking right there.
it's just free to,
Well, maybe we should reach out to the few churches that actually have parking lots here.
Well, that one's the obvious one.
That's the obvious
because
one.
right
well,
around
and
the-
then I'm thinking.
There's one on
Crown-
Shannon.
yeah,
Oh, on
there's-
Crown Valley,
yeah,
too.
I mean, that's.
And there's one on Sierra Highway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe we should get some input from them.
Do you guys know the,
I have a contact at Crown Valley Community.
And I can
That's on
talk to
Sierra
Mike
Highway.
Fox
Yeah, Sierra Highway.
at the Presbyterian Church. He's an
Okay.
elder.
would you guys mind doing that and like giving me some feedback and I can write the letter?
And I wonder if they're even aware.
Well, it's been, I mean, I've been talking about it.
Doesn't mean they're aware.
We talk about a lot.
But that would be great because then we hear what their perspectives are.
Yeah,
Well,
that'd be
and the
shocked.
problems with them living in like the campgrounds, they've got to have ways to get to their, other
Services.
facilities and to, doctors or
Transportation.
whatever they, yeah.
Yeah, there's no trails from right by.
No.
Tom,
Yes.
might
Heritage
be
Field.
located. The church does own that, so.
Yeah, they do.
Presbyterian church.
I think that would be what they would consider the parking lot.
I know, that's what
That's
I
not
was
really a
thinking.
parking lot. That
It's
is an
not.
undeveloped
Parcel.
parcel.
Parcel, but things are done on it, it's used for parking.
For filming.
For filming, they just
And
did.
for the women's club, runs rummage sale.
Well, should we say that they should have standards like a fence? Fencing?
Well, I think step one would be just to see what
See
these
what the
organizations
churches-
are actually thinking.
Okay.
If this is a good
They're
idea or a bad idea, something they can support, because they may have some valuable input on it.
Yeah, that's true.
And they might be open
And they might be open to it. They may not think it's such a great idea. Because I know that most of our churches here are really not well-funded, so
Right.
it is a large burden,
Yep.
I think we should wait till they come and we hear what they have to say and what feedback we get from the community at that meeting too.
Okay.
And then,
Well, they only commit, because they're gonna come after the draft is
After the
out.
draft, so the conservatives
Well,
getting
yeah,
some
but
comments in before.
didn't they say they would have, they'd give time for comment? I thought they said that in their,
I didn't print out the email.
yeah, I thought they said that in their email for some reason.
Okay,
Or
well, I think
something they said.
I'm
the
sure
draft
they'll
ordinance
take
was-
comment for us at the meeting, but it will be after the draft is out.
Right.
Then there's a comment
There'll
period.
be a comment period on the draft.
Yes,
Yeah.
And this is the first draft coming, right?
Oftentimes, there is only one
Yeah.
draft and then final, except for SCA wasn't like that, obviously,
Right.
but.
But we have not seen the draft, we only know what they're talking about.
She said, here's the email, she said, hi Jack, you made 16 words from me. We're planning to release a first cut preliminary draft of the ordinance in a couple weeks. Stay tuned. There will be plenty of opportunities to provide comments. We are still early in the process.
Okay, yeah, you're right,
So
so,
this is a preliminary draft.
I don't know, I've
I
never
don't know
heard that
what
term
that means
before, I
either.
didn't
I've
know
not
what
heard
that
that.
meant.
Yeah, it's like expired CUP.
So we should, that's just one less letter I have to write, so I'm fine.
No, I think it's worth waiting for the draft and then
Okay,
Yeah,
and could you ask the
understanding it
churches to
completely.
come to
Yeah.
the meeting on the 16th maybe?
I'll reach out to
Yeah,
Mike.
yeah.
Because then they can talk about it, because I'm pretty sure that the
They-
safe parking
They
is part
need
of
to be
it.
aware of,
That people are going to randomly be parking their parking.
yes.
Well, that's the
Insurance
thing,
may
they
not
could
even
end
know.
up there
Well,
even if they aren't one of
So
the.
so here's a question. So church calls you now, and let's say somebody parks a camper there, they say, hey, look, they're taking up like 10 spots because we're parked across it. What recourse do they have? Like,
Trespassing.
okay, so you would make them move immediately?
Yeah, if they wanted to make a citizen's arrest and go the trespassing around, yeah.
Okay.
Or they put a letter of something or other.
Well, that's, they're not there, but if someone at the church is usually there's a representative of the property, that kind of thing.
Okay.
That, the letter of agency was more like empty, empty fields and stuff like that there.
What
What about a motorhome that's a domicile?
What's that?
What about a motorhome that's actually a home? Does that have, is that as easy to move for trespassing as anything else?
As long as Sierra Towing can get the flatbed out here.
The reason I'm asking that way is because I know there's been residents who reported issues with people showing squatting on the property and then it being more difficult to extract for whatever myriad of reasons. So I'm just, thinking in terms of, what mechanisms are there in place now that we're.
As long as they're willing to do the citizen's arrest kind of stuff, there's really not too many hurdles.
What I mean is, like, you wouldn't have to evict them.
No. That comes up with I rent a room to you, and we have a verbal agreement. It's week to week, and now, I'm sick and tired of you because you're taking all my awesome beard oil.
Okay. But on that note, though, let's say Joe Smith shows up, he parks his RV, and then you show up, and the church is like, hey, we want them gone. And he's like, no, I had a verbal agreement with them that I could stay here.
Every single situation is different.
Yeah.
But if it came down to that person established a room residency,
yeah.
That I either an agreement or renting a room or whatever, then yeah, they have to go through
That's my concern. That's the scary part to me. It's because it's he said, she said, kind of thing.
We're gonna poke holes in. Most people are not smart enough to have a coherent story.
Yeah, but what my concern is that they eventually, if they're interested in this, will develop a script of like,
Yeah.
I was told on date X, blah, 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 and then, I don't know. I'm probably being overly paranoid on it. I just, that actually frightens me from the standpoint of, I really don't think it's going to be one of those things that there's enough forethought on like what it would be communicated to the public at large. You're going to end up with people just pulling in the parking lots and being like, no, I'm cool. And then now we're going to have this problem. And I'm more convinced, especially with the stuff that's on Soledad, that would be the de facto, oh, cool, we can't park on Soledad, but we'll just go to the church park. And now it becomes the church's burden of proof to get rid of people. So
And part of this also is that the county will actually pay you like $30 a night if you let a car stay there. So it's a money
But
revenue source.
if the landowner, if the church is saying, we don't want him here, or whatever, then the burden of proof would be on the, if you're saying the resident said, well, this guy said it, well, you know what? You got to take off and go kick rocks unless they can prove somehow that.
Yeah,
Well,
and that's almost
there,
like the safe parking thing. And there's speculations in that it has to be a secure parking.
Yeah. No,
they have to make it.
Well, and we don't know because
there's got to be facilities available for them. And this is like, especially that one we're talking about, it's an empty lot.
Yeah, well, I think even a further concern for me would be that the businesses or homes surrounding the churches should have some say in what's going to get parked there. Well, no, what's going to get parked there because that's
they'll have security there.
So we should ask at least that it be a minor CUP.
I think it has to be.
Public comment.
I think so because I think that if I live next to a church, it's under the auspices that the church functions like a church. So they might have a midweek meeting, they might have little meetings, they might meet on Sunday or Saturday or whatever. But that's how it functions. I did not move there or pick to move there because they're going to have a bunch of people living in RVs. I think that changes the very nature of how that's functioning.
Well, that's true, and in places like, and this has been a big problem in Santa Monica, a lot of people living on the streets are bathing in people's hot tubs.
Yeah.
No, I'm not kidding, that's
In Ventura, they've got I play golf in Ventura in the summertime, and they have homeless out in the fields behind the golf courses or off Victoria, and they're stealing golf bags, wallets, and they know it's a problem. And the problem is ABC News, there's a lot of sympathetic reports for the homeless, and there are some things that we really need as a society to straighten out. But they're not all these good people and bad luck.
Yeah.
There is a certain percentage of that is bad people with bad choices. And the church will open up its parking lot where we're doing the Lord's work. Well, then meanwhile, they're robbing or
Yeah.
ruining properties around that.
And again, maybe it makes sense for a city that's got some services that can plug people in, but you stick a parking lot here and then what? There's not,
Nowhere to go.
there's no job
services
center,
to
there's
get.
no.
So they wonder.
Well, that's probably what they're going to end up figuring out, is that since we have no services and we have.
Well, and I would like to highlight that so we don't have to, and have the adventure first to find
You
it
don't want to
out.
assume that that's.
No, I don't want to assume that either, no.
Okay,
So
so,
we'll hold off,
yeah,
okay, except for the guys who are gonna contact.
yeah, we'll contact the churches and then let them also know that we're gonna have them here.
Yeah.
September
16th.
All right, unfinished new business.
I got into the Edison issue enough
To realize
to realize it's a huge effort.
I've had, I don't know about anybody else, but I've had literally unrelenting
Every
PSPS
day.
calls, like every day.
Every day.
And every day, my wife asks me,
But that's
why are
more-
we getting these calls? And it's like,
Okay, I need, okay, this, okay.
Yeah, what do
That's
you
the
need?
other part of it.
Yeah, what do you?
Every day on my phone.
Yeah,
I need,
yeah.
Do you have, I was trying every day to log on to Edison for the PSP because it looks like it's every day inactive.
Yes.
And then I have huge gaps. So, because I don't get these, I don't.
I have voicemails with dates, I get emails to me.
You know, if you could
I
forward
just
that to
forward
me,
them to you.
because that's hugely easier on the lift.
And it's always, it's,
Never do anything halfway. I can't do it.
and this is one of those things that if you had a major city center that had even the amount of calls we've had, it would be like top of the news, that this is a huge problem.
Yeah.
And it's
Nothing.
nothing.
If they cut the power off to a major city for 3 days,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be over.
And,
it would be over.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It would be done.
If I could
There'd be a new
offer
power structure in place.
a suggestion, because I tried, because we've got horses and everything else, and, you know, and so if they're gonna be shut down 3 days, what do we do with watering the horses and the property and the dogs? And so I checked into those generators,
Yeah.
standby generators, 12 to 14,000.
It's not good.
Because you have to permit it, you have to go through the
Yeah,
county.
go
you have to-
back, and they gotta do the switch and this and that.
And that's what I mean, is they should be looking at ways to
But
ease
am I
that.
gonna spend $12,000, $13,000 on something I may not use?
Yeah.
Or use it just for. So then I went and talked to an electrician about maybe hooking something up, I can hook a generator, kick it on, and I was kind of rebuffed on that, because it's not done a lot, you have to get the switch anyway from Southern California, and so I called
Because if you
Boston.
don't do it legally, you catch, your car catches
Yes,
fire.
yeah.
And I know this for a fact.
No
I-
licensed
what happened?
electrician.
And that's
So
all
I-
I'm gonna say on that.
Yeah, so I got hold of Boston Henry,
I didn't do it.
Garage.
and I asked Boston Henry, you know, I'm running out of ideas, any suggestions? And he goes, get a sump pump with a 10-foot hose, drop it in your tank, run that hose to your pump, because we have a pump outside, we don't have a gravity fill. And there's a hookup, and you hook it right into there, get a generator, work the sump pump, and you'll have not great water pressure, but you'll have water.
Oh, okay.
And then you can have the water truck fill it up if it goes longer than 3 days.
It's great till you run out of water.
Well, that's why you call it water. I mean, but it's a $57 solution to a
If they
Except for the water truck people don't
Don't have
have
electricity.
power.
Oh, they're gonna
Well,
be.
and-
Edison has said they're gonna work with the water haulers. I don't know what that means.
Well, and I think if we ask water haulers if they've been contacted, maybe that's something we need to do too, see if they have been working with water haulers.
Yeah, that would be part of our motion to be parties. Like, these are the things we asked them, they haven't even done them.
If you have,
Well, if they haven't done them.
if you have solar and Edison cuts it, do you still not have power?
Oh,
Yes,
yes,
you
you
have a
get
battery.
cut.
You must have a
If you're,
battery.
if you're behind the meter,
Yeah, and the
anytime
switch
the
should
power
see
goes
a
down,
backfeed on
everyone
this.
goes off.
Yeah.
Because they don't want you back
Back
feeding
feeding.
into a grid that's not serving.
So you spend $40,000.
Or you
get
get
Yeah.
a battery.
You get a battery, yeah.
For a
you
roof
get a
cover.
battery. And I got a quote today, and it's like,
It's not cheap.
no, yeah, so I was told that a Tesla Powerwall, yeah, would be like $8,000, and they said that they couldn't even talk about installing it until after the year because they're so backlogged. And if you went with another brand, it was $14,000, and, you know, after rebates. So that's the other thing too, it's after rebates, so it's probably like about 20, and then there's probably about
Right.
$6,000 in tax rebates.
So Brendan, let me ask you, how does a committee in Sacramento discuss preparing for de-energization, when they aren't even, how does that work? How do they reach out to us so we can tell them?
So generally it would apply to whoever's appointed to a specific committee, so I couldn't really speak on that directly. I wouldn't know the first thing about it aside from specific either assembly members or senators are appointed to specific committees, such as someone like he's a chair on the Public Safety Committee.
Oh,
So,
is he?
yes.
Okay, so this might be, if the assembly were to do a discussion, that he'd be part of that.
If it went to
Maybe
public safety, yes.
So would he let us know, well, I don't know, I guess this is under utilities, which is a different committee, I
Yes.
guess.
So essentially it would go to them, they would look at viability, they would obviously analyze who's talking about what, some of the objections, some of the pros and cons essentially.
But how do they know the pros and cons without talking with you?
Without talking to
That
us.
one I couldn't give you a 100% answer on. I would recommend, I believe you have our Sacramento number, yeah?
Yes, somewhere.
Okay, I'll give you one of my cards afterwards. Reach out to our legislative director, Mark Isidro. He may be the best contact. I'm sure he'll be able to steer you in the right way for it.
Okay, because I don't know, you know, there's so many parts involved here. We're talking about barking in the PUC tree if we can, which I want to do. I'm not saying I don't
No,
want
I
to do it.
understand, no, but it's
I
just
need
you
to
should live.
overwhelming.
Yeah, and there's a million, death by a million.
So there is gonna be a wildfire town hall meeting though, Brandon?
Yes, we have one coming up. I believe the poster should come out in the next couple weeks.
Is it, hopefully it's on a different Monday?
Yeah,
I will double check the date actually.
yeah, please don't have it on Monday.
Give me 2 seconds. I think I have it on the calendar already.
It's really important to reach out to the rural communities because Palmdale isn't even on the map. Palmdale's not an affected town.
Well, that's the reason we're doing it centralized in
Yeah, that's
Palmdale, because
perfect.
then we can hit Little Rock, Pear Blossom, Acton, Ogden, say up to Lake Hughes, Lake Elizabeth,
Green Valley, so Jim Walsh should know this,
Yeah.
that's where he lives.
even out into, we're hoping some of our district from Kern can out as well, because obviously, I mean, some of the larger areas aren't affected by it, but then you look at this, like, I grew up here. Obviously, I know firsthand, we're affected by the fires.
Yeah.
And that's a major issue. So we're trying to host this to give everyone a little bit more peace of mind into what the Department of Insurance is doing,
Well,
what first responders are doing, and what Edison is doing.
So that's another question. I've seen lots of people posting their insurances getting yanked for the area.
Yes.
And so.
Oh, really?
Yes, and so my thing is, well, it should, if they're doing all these mitigation efforts, we actually should be improving. So
Right.
we should be getting better in that space, not worse.
Right.
And it appears, you have people that long-term residents who've had insurance with particular carriers for a very long time. We're not talking like, I moved here and I couldn't get covered. Now, when I first moved here, I couldn't get covered, and then I found an agent that would cover. Who knows when they go for renewal, because these people are, like I said, have had coverage and have lost it. So if this is really improving everything, then I would expect the insurance commission, should be doing something
Doing something.
to say, hey, no, these are mitigation. Now, the
Our
flip
rates
side-
should be dropping. is
our
what
rates
you're
should be dropping.
saying.
Well, here's the thing, the rates dropping, or what ends up doing, they're not buying is actually mitigating anything, which is why we're doing it.
Hey, that's.
So I think there's an interesting crux of issues there that I think need to be talked about.
No, it's
Those
all
are
over
definitely
next
issues
door.
I would recommend, please come to the town hall. And I
Yeah.
would
No,
recommend
absolutely.
bringing these up because
Just don't make
These
it
are
on
On the
any of these
16th.
days when we
Just
got
not the
these hearings.
16th, or the
let me double check, I'll find out tomorrow. I'm almost positive we already have a date, but I'm not 100% on that. I don't have my schedule with me, unfortunately. I only have like my personal schedule or not, personal schedule, not the full set.
Yeah.
So I'll email you guys as soon as I find out any more information. Once we get the flyers, I'll definitely bring copies and I'll email it to you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. All right. All right, so any other,
Well, just on this, I just want to say, Jackie, if you do want to do this, and the PUC, and like you did with Tri-Tip, where the PUC found that your intervention was necessary and correct, and they did, I don't know how much compensation you got, I'm sure it was the bare minimum they gave you, I'm sure you didn't, that, I think that is a fantastic resource for this community and this town council.
Yeah.
So I am very open to that process, if that's the
Okay.
direction
To at
that.
least cover the cost, because you have to drive.
And there's a
over
good chance you won't
certain
get it,
areas.
you will lose. I'm sorry to say, but there's a good chance they may say that your intervention was not warranted and you get diddly.
Yeah,
So at the very least, I think that,
that's why it's important to have this type of evidence, like we're having it every week. They can't say, oh, that doesn't matter. It's the heart of the whole issue, of course it matters. So, you know, knowing that I have access to that, because I didn't even know they were coming out every week. So that actually, that makes it even more easy for me to,
Yeah, I should be able to get them off, you know, I think I have them all archived. And
yeah.
and the thing is, that's just my zone. But I know other people were getting when I wasn't, so like, I don't know, like, I think Chris Croydon mentioned.
are you considered bootlegger circuit?
No, I'm up Shannon Valley.
Well, bootlegger circuit goes from the top of Aliso Canyon all the way down
Yeah,
on
no,
both
no.
sides. It goes across the freeway and then
Yeah.
up the other side.
No, and that's what I'm saying, is folks on that, circuit, like,
What are the other
and
maps?
some of those people who would post and say, hey, I'm having another outage, or hey, I got a call. We're on the
We're on the
other
other.
thing. But that's my point, is that we're getting it at different times. So in theory, they're ping-ponging, you know.
And I don't think the atmospheric conditions between Aliso Canyon and where you are that different.
No, that's weird. Well, maybe Chris has his archive too, because that would be,
Yeah.
that's even more.
Now, Chris is definitely on the.
Causing confusion in our community. It's like, you got a notice, you didn't get a notice. They're like
Well,
across the street.
one of the things they came here and told us was the reason we're doing all this is not just to harden the lines against shoring and things falling on them, but to add switches so they can turn off smaller sections.
Specific.
This bootlegger circuit is gigantic.
Oh.
And at least what they show you when they send you the little picture, it goes right through the center of town, across the freeway and up the other side. And, you know, I don't think the little market there, and the perking up and all that, I don't think they're in any serious fire danger when it comes to these conditions. But they're gonna lose their power too. So,
Do they send you maps then?
yes, they do.
Yeah.
See, I haven't gotten them.
And mine are from Chuck. Chuck sends me them.
Okay,
Well, he
Chuck,
sends it to town
Chuck
council.
sent them to the Acton Town Council.
Yeah,
Chuck who? Oh, Chuck. Oh, okay, well, I've only seen him send a couple.
I've seen two.
two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so I will look and see.
But they do come with maps and it is.
But that's another point though, is we've gotten two, and I've gotten way more than 2 calls. So,
Okay.
you know, now maybe for some crazy reason, we're considered by somebody to be non-rules, maybe that's why I'm not, but I'm getting the calls, and I'm not getting a map showing like, hey, your zone is.
All of Acton was basically covered between those two sections.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah,
The
yeah.
whole
Pretty
town.
much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, Edison was telling the administrative law judge that Vincent Substation is not inactive, and neither is anything north of the 14 freeway. I think they finally know where we are now.
When you get calls, do they say that they're looking into for power
I might get
down? Do they mention Santa Clarita at all?
No, it's,
No, because that's interesting, they don't mention it to you. Now, I'm just up the street.
oh, and you're
from you,
getting ones for Santa
And
Cruz?
I'm getting multiple
Interesting.
calls, just like you.
Yeah, mine are always say it's all robotic voice, it's like for the city of Acton, like, you know.
Okay, now see, the calls I get refer me
Interesting.
into the city of Santa
Oh.
Clarita.
Oh, not Agua Dulce?
No, they just talk about Santa Clarita.
Did you know you've been annexed?
I've
By the
been
way-
fighting about annexation for 30 years, anyway, go ahead, buddy.
No, I'm sorry, about the annexation, by the way. Welcome to Santa Clarita. Increase your property tax bill.
So that's the only other old business is we
Yeah,
have the
just look at the
film
power
CUP
raise
meeting
taxes.
on August 22nd.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't remember the time or any of the other stuff, but I don't remember if it's in LA or up here.
No, I don't know if we ever, I think we'll
Yeah, that-
clarify that, yeah.
Okay, I'll do that, clarify when and where, and if it's down in LA, I got
That's
this,
this week.
I got the happy man. Yeah, it's 2 days, 3 days.
Yeah.
And that's not filming?
Filming CUPs. It's not film permits, but.
So the film ranches.
Yeah, I'm filming.
Oh, so the ranch.
Well, that's the CUPs, yeah.
Motion to finish line, all right, nothing else? Last call, moving on.
I just emailed the council.
I saw that.
Okay, you saw that? So if you guys can post it on the website, I mean, that way.
Yeah, I'll put it under our resources link.
Perfect. Yeah,
He sent the letter of agency.
just like a PDF, so if you guys want to throw it up
It's
there,
on the website under resources.
so you can just turn it in at the desk, at the front desk, and then we'll put it on.
That's
top.
perfect. I love having that kind of stuff up there because, you know, like sitting with the dumpy and stuff, there's at least a place we can point people to go grab the. All right, looking at items for next agenda, so we have,
I have the interim
Yeah, interim housing.
with Connie Chung,
yep,
and we were gonna ask
Mr. Delson.
Mr. Delson. Some two things,
And maybe I'll have a more firm issue on the Edison too, so maybe throw that.
maybe.
I'll put that.
Good question.
So with Connie, she's been the one that supposedly has the substation, like held up or whatever, with county council.
Wait, Connie Chung?
Yeah.
Wait, substation, what?
The Brody's property.
Oh, okay, I was thinking Vincent, I'm like,
No.
So I've been trying to email her and Catherine's been we're trying to get like a straight answer, but I still don't have anything.
she's
So-
had some family medical problems and
Okay.
concerns, so, but she was in today, so,
Can you
and
just,
she'll be here on the 16th.
can you just shoot an email so I have something to remind me and I'll write a note to, we can.
Okay, I don't know if you guys want to bombard her on all these other issues, but that's
No,
my
but
contact person.
She's here, we can ask, just. I mean,
Yeah.
That's my contact person for that whole thing, so I'm like,
That's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, we're not, we decided not to bombard her, right? We're gonna hold on, so.
Yeah, we're not saying this before, and if he's here at a meeting, it makes her realize, it's like, hey, actually, I mean, that's so nice.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's Connie that's coming, so we should, I don't remember.
Oh, she said her and somebody else.
Oh, okay, good.
She said, Jack works for me and Heather.
Oh, perfect, okay, so good. So at this point, Connie's coming, so.
Are you guys going to the sheriff's?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I just got this.
Oh.
We said.
You're not going to the
Sorry,
sheriff's?
can we go back to unfinished business?
So do more of us need to go to
If you
this?
assume-
We may?
Yes, we may.
To go to the CBC.